We was on Gray Street, you know, and then my parents moved to Broadmoor, built a house. I built a house in '60, and I stayed there for, I guess, 40 years. I played 4 years at Terrebonne. They moved me from Houma Junior High to the 9th grade at the school at Terrebonne, and I played baseball there. I really liked baseball. But I worked at, when I got out of high school, I went to work at Far North. I would work Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I installed air conditioners in new cars. You get the new cars, the big Oldsmobiles and the Cadillacs, and you could actually put a factory air conditioner in the car, in the shop down there. I worked there a year and a half and a little while at Terrebonne Motors, but then they did the same thing, because I would leave Friday, and every week I would win, like, maybe if there's 2 races, you go to Biloxi and you go to La Paz. Well, that's $400 a week. And the average salary that those guys over there, it was like $60 to $80 a week. Then I opened that shop on Bayou Street, and Jerry Dover, the parts manager, he's the one that went with me with that 57, because, man, he loved it. He's just, you know, he came in with me to run the shop. And then it got so big, and I built that shop on the Bayou side over there. When that 57 Chevrolet, that wasn't a regular 57. They only made 10 of those cars. They made it for NASCAR. It was a no back seat, and it had the roll cage pads in the bottom, if whatever sport you want to do with it. And it was a drag race car too. And that's what started me off. I almost won every week with that 57 Chevrolet. The smaller the chamber, the more fuel you could burn. So when we went into the fuel injection, we put the dome pistons in, but it had a bigger head on the fuel in, so it wouldn't hit. So I just used those heads, and man, we almost won every race we went to with that 57. That lasted to '60. And then we got a Dodge, but that wasn't a very good deal. And then when we really started was 65, 64. They come out with the wedge, and then they put the Hemi in the 65. And that's when we got really going on pro. We went to that moonshot car. That's when we started changing it up. We moved the back wheels from back and moved them up 10 inches. And we put all the straight axles on the front and all the bull, and lightened it up. And it had a race. What really got me going, we won most everything around here. And we went far as Arkansas, in Texas and Oklahoma, and with that car. The first car that put me to where I wanted to just keep doing that was that 65 car, when we modified it and all that, made it lighter. And Chrysler kind of put me on the road, because we beat everybody up there. It just, I don't know why, but it was lighter, and it was gasoline. You couldn't run no fuel in it. And that's how we got going.
Well, early on, he was racing locally, so he was home, and we would all go to the racetrack. I remember going to La Place as little kids with the Dovers, and we would sit we would back the vehicles up to the fence, and they would race, and they would come by and stop, and we'd give them sandwiches, and sometimes they'd throw us over the fence, and we'd get to go in the pits, and that's probably the earliest I remember of, him doing this for a living.
Up until '70, we couldn't run the national events, so we didn't have a drag show. And we were in what you call match races, and we went all around the country. And then we started building tube chassis, and that's how the real funny car come into business. Then that's when it got expensive.
I think the first big race was when they had the Cajun Nationals in Baton Rouge, where it was a formal national event. and all the guys were there. I mean, all the big teams were there. I guess I was 10 or 11 years old, and again, that was a big deal.
He called me on the phone, and I had never met him. And he says, I would like to go to a few races with you guys, you know. I said, well, anybody can go. I mean, I didn't understand what he was wanting to do. But he put up a lot of money, because when we got like in the 68 or 69, we was building 2 cars a year because you had to, man, the chassis would be all twisted up. We was at Indy, and we was the first car to go over 200. Larry Coleman, the transmission guy that we knew, and he was racing too. His car flew about, I'm gonna not exaggerate, 200 feet in the air. I was sitting on the starting line ready to run, and when he flew like that, I says, I got to thinking, what we gonna do? Because when it got air underneath it, it rolled over. And then I said, man, we gotta do something. And I had 3 kids. And I said, well, I'm just gonna get out of this thing. And I finished the year, but 1973 is when I got out. When I quit driving in the funny cars, we didn't have any way of wind tunneling. So we built a dragster. And we won a world championship with the dragster. It was 7-8 years that we run the dragster. And
you know, everybody in the neighborhood, all the kids loved it, and we would even take the tops off his trophies and drag them behind our bicycles, you know, down the street. Put parachutes on our bikes, and so it was just a big influence, you know.
2 seasons, we won 7 national events, and it was only 12.
I guess I was 19 or 20. I actually went on the road with the team. Richard Tharp was actually driving, and rode that 18-wheeler. I couldn't drive it. It was a cab over Kenworth, and it beat me to death. But the longest haul was from, I think, Pomona to Montreal.
The funny car come back, and then Mark Oswald wanted to drive, and I think we won 40-something races just with him.
For 20 years, the names of Paul Candies and Leonard Hughes have appeared together on the side of winning race cars. More than just a successful team, Candies and Hughes embody the dual spirit of funny car racing. A love of competition, the closer the better. A love of experimenting, the quicker the better.
Actually, it was in Superstock days. Then we went to injected funny car. Then we went to a fuel funny car, and we stayed there for a few years. And then when I quit driving, we went to a dragster with Richard Tharp.
In 1976, Richard Tharp drove the Candies and Hughes dragster to a Winston World Championship, winning 2 national events, including the U.S. Nationals. In 1981, Mark Oswald took over the driving duties of the Candies and Hughes dragster. The next year, Mark won 2 national events and finished 2nd in the Winston point standings. For 1983, Candies and Hughes switched from a dragster to a funny car. Oswald was instantly competitive, and the team again finished 2nd in the Winston points.
And we was always 2 or 3 from the top, you know, to win the world championship.
You have to run good, you have to run fast, but you have to, like I say, you got to be consistent. To go out there and make one big number is not what you're looking for. You're trying to run as hard as you can and repeat 4 or 5 times, or not just to go out and run one good time and then that's it. Every week you're doing something different. Every run you're trying something different, and that's the way it's always been. You just keep trying all the time. We never go up there with the same thing twice until eliminations. Then we decide what we thought was best, and then we'll go from there.
I don't even look at a computer right now. I would stay up to 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and we'd go to the racetrack to run. And because you got to study it, you got to know what the thing is doing. Now the computer runs the cars.
It was running an old Apple Macintosh, and I think it did okay. I mean, nothing was real on the screen. You had to print all the information out, but it did give basic information about the car, you know, exhaust temperatures, you know, drive shaft RPM, engine RPM, but it wasn't at the resolution that we needed. A year or so later, I graduated from college, and my dad pretty much said, "Hey, I sent you to college, I'm gonna put you to work." So I just McMaster car catalog and Granger catalog and started finding sensors. The biggest challenge was finding an actual data logger that would work on the car. We had Omnidata, who made something called a polycorder. That was the same data recorder that was on the space shuttle, but it would not work with all the electromagnetic noise on that car. So at the time I was working for Lumcon in Cocodrie doing their IT work, building weather stations, and went to this Campbell Scientific data logger, and I wrote all the code and developed all the sensors. We built the boxes and wired it up, and it worked. I remember the first race we went to was Atlanta, and it worked.
Well, to tell the truth, it actually helps. It does. But myself, I rather the old seat of the pants racing, where the guy goes out there and makes a decision, and that's how you win the races. Who can come up with the best ideas, or who can make the right decision at the right time. I always like that, but this computer stage is here, and it's here to stay.
Old Milwaukee came in, and I never drank a beer in my life. I never had a can of beer in my hand, except at the races. If you got to take a picture or something or whatever, it was in Old Milwaukee, and that's true. I mean, I'm not pulling on it. Never smoked a cigarette. I wouldn't let nobody drink, anybody. At the races, you can't do that. I mean, one mistake, it'll hurt somebody. I mean, it's serious. Keith Black said, "Leonard, if you would come out here and help me run this thing, I know we can get this to work." And we went out there. We stayed there 3 months. We'd fly back and forth home, but we'd go out to the racing. We kept testing and testing for 3 months, every week, 3 months. And then when we went there, we brought it to Gainesville. We won the race with the dragster. They didn't really know that it was aluminum block, and that thing was like 300 pounds. I mean, it was light. They approached us at Padone to go in the wind tunnel, and then that started it. That's a $30,000 an hour deal. Yeah, we went from like 260 to 300.
And after we built the computer system, I actually started going with him full time. But when he retired in '95 or '6, I was done.
They was at a few of the baseball games at its senior year, and there was a dance in Raceland. And I don't know, we just met her, and then we started going out, and yeah, been married 62 years.
She was there and did everything anybody wanted her to do. She did a lot of the bookkeeping, the ordering of parts, and just managed the team from behind the scenes, to be honest.
My name is Mark Oswald. I'm currently the crew chief for Antron Brown Motorsports. My affiliation with Leonard is I was with him from 1981 to 1992 and got to see him win multiple races and world championships. A lot of people don't know this, but Houma, Louisiana is well known to the racing community. It's due to the large number of very good racers from this particular area. And Leonard was basically the catalyst for all that. He was the epitome of the racer in this area, and he's brought so much attention to this area. Leonard in racing was everything. He was a driver, he was an owner, and he was a crew chief. Those are all high pressure positions, and he pulled it off amazingly. Leonard, Judy, the whole Hughes family, and the whole community of Houma, I applaud your decision to induct him into the Hall of Fame.
I came home and we went fishing for 20 years, 22 years.